Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael, and today I thought we'd do something a little different. I remember when I was growing up, my family and I used to watch, there was a show that come on, it was a Julia Child show that would come on one of the networks. And I was thinking when I was growing up, I thought, oh, that'd be nice to be able to learn how to cook something different. So growing up here in the South, you get into your comfort foods and you cook the same thing that you like. That's what you grew up with and what you're used to. So I thought we would try something different. I know when I was working, I got to go to a lot of different cities and things and try different foods. And I thought I would try something a little different and get out of my comfort zone. So I've had these cookbooks, and this one is Mastering the Art of French Cooking. And I thought I'm just going to start a few of the recipes in here and maybe some of the other cookbooks that I've got and try something different. And as I'm learning it, showing you what I'm learning here also. So when I picked this book up, I just opened it up, and the first page that I opened up to was the potage velouté aux champignons, and that is the cream of mushroom soup. I don't think I've ever had homemade cream of mushroom soup. I know I've had it in restaurants before and definitely had it in the cans, but I've never made it. I've never been around anybody that has made it from home from scratch. So we're going to make this today, and I'm going to set the recipe book to the side, and we're going to go through this, and we're going to learn how to make cream of mushroom soup, and I'm going to show you how to do it and work my way through this. Let's get started making our cream of mushroom soup. So the first thing it said to do was chop up about 1/4 cup of onion. So I had a white onion, and I did chop that up off camera, so I've got that in this bowl here. And then it said to take 3 tablespoons of butter, and we're going to melt that in our Dutch oven here. So if you don't have a Dutch oven, you can definitely use a stock pot. It said a minimum of 2.5 quarts. So I've got 3 tablespoons of butter here. I'm going to put into my Dutch oven and turn that on and melt that down. I'm going to put that on about a medium, and we'll get that melted. All right, now that I've got my butter melted, I'm going to go ahead and add my 1/4 cup of my onions in. The recipe did say that we were to cook these slowly for about 8 to 10 minutes. And we just wanted to make sure these are tender. We do not want to brown these. All right, my onions are cooking nicely. I have turned that down to low. Like I said, all we wanted to do was to make sure these get tender. We don't want to brown those, and those are cooking really well. So now moving on to the mushrooms. The recipe did specify between 3/4 pound to a pound. I've got a pound of mushrooms here, and I bought the portobellos. You really don't have to buy the portobellos if you don't want to. You can use the other white caps. And I'm just going to wipe these off to get any of the dirt that's on these off of them. And I'm going to go ahead and clean the rest of these, and I'll be back in just a minute. All right, now that I've got my mushrooms wiped off and cleaned, it says we wanted to remove the stems, so I'm going to pop the stems out of these and set these to the side. And we'll take all of these out, and we'll get ready to start the next process. All right, I've got all the stems removed from the caps now, and it said to give these a chop, so I'm going to go ahead and chop these up. All right, I've got my mushroom stems chopped now, and the next step in our recipe is we're going to add 3 tablespoons of flour to our butter. And that's just going to kind of make it a little bit of roux and kind of thicken it up. So we'll put 3 tablespoons right into our butter, and we want to cook this for about 3 minutes. We don't want this to brown. We just want to kind of cook that flour taste off of it. So mix it in nicely with your butter, and we'll keep a watch on it for about 3 minutes. And while that is cooking there, I'm going to measure out 6 cups of chicken stock, and I'm going to put that into a saucepan, and I'm going to bring that to a boil. I am back, and I've got my chicken stock now that I brought up to a boil, and my flour and my onions have cooked nicely here. I do have the heat turned off this. It said off heat to combine these 2 ingredients together. So I'm going to go ahead and add my 6 cups of my chicken stock in. And I'm just going to give that a stir around and get those onions and that flour incorporated into that stock. And then I'm going to add in, it said 2 sprigs of parsley. And I've got some parsley here, and I'm just going to go ahead and put that in on the top. And I've got 1/8 of a teaspoon of thyme, and we're going to add that in now. And it said to add in 1/3 of a bay leaf. So I've got a bay leaf here that's fairly small compared to the other ones that was in the jar. That's about 1/3 of one. So I'm going to drop that in right there. The last ingredient we're going to put in are our mushroom stems. So I'm going to grab the mushroom stems, and we're going to drop those right in on the top. Let's give that a nice little stir. We're going to bring this up to a simmer. I want to simmer this for 20 minutes. And the recipe did say to put a lid on it, so I'm going to put the lid on it and off just a little bit to the side. Don't completely close that up. We're going to set a timer for 20 minutes and let this simmer. All right, I did move my stock to the stove so it can continue to simmer And we'll let that cook for, like I said, 20 minutes earlier. And we're going to go ahead and start working on the mushroom caps. We're going to now slice these thinly. So we're going to go ahead and get these started. And thinly to you might mean something completely different to me, but I'm going to cut these, and these should be about, I'm going to call that thinly sliced right there. So I'm going to continue to work on these, and I'll be back in just a minute, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, now that I've got my mushroom caps cut up, I'm going to go ahead and transfer those back to my bowl here, and we're going to get our stock over here, and we're going to move on to the next step of our recipe. I am back, and let's check our recipe to see where we're at. So my stock did cook for 20 minutes, and it was simmering for 20 minutes, and it did say to skim occasionally. I didn't see anything that built up on it that I would need to skim off of it, and it did say season to taste. So I put a little bit of salt and pepper in this and tasted it to get it to where I liked it. So definitely season it to taste as it is simmering, and you'll be ready for that. Now it says strained, pressing the juices out of the mushroom stems, and then return the soup back to the pan. So we're going to do that now. I've got a bowl here, and I've got two strainers. I've got a colander here and a strainer that we're going to run it through. And I'm going to go ahead and take the lid off of this, and we're going to pour our stock. I wanted to show you what that looked like after it's simmered for the 20 minutes. That looks really nice, and it is very aromatic. It smells really good. I know this is going to taste fantastic too. So we're going to dump this into our strainer, and I'm going to let that drain a little bit, and then I'm going to take the back of the spatula, and I'm just going to kind of press everything so that we get all of that liquid out of there and get all of that flavor down into our stock. That's why I've got this second colander here, just in case anything came through this one, it would catch it in the next one. So, all right, that looks pretty good. We've got all of the flavor out of that, so I'm going to set this aside. We will not be using that again. And then you can take your second strainer that you've got here and just shake it to make sure there's nothing else in it. So I've got nothing in this. I'm going to put this to the side, and I'll be right back. Now that we've got our stock, we want to check with our recipe now, and it says to melt butter in a separate saucepan. I'm going to use the same one. I just gave it a washout just to make sure there wasn't any of the other seasonings and things that was in it from where we filtered it out earlier. We're going to toss in the salt, mushrooms, and lemon juice. So the ingredients we've got is 2 tablespoons of butter. We'll put that in here and melt that into an enamel saucepan. We're going to put the thinly sliced mushroom caps into that, and then we're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of lemon juice. So let's go ahead and get that started. So I'm going to turn my pan on here, and I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of butter, and that is unsalted butter that I've got there. All right, my butter has melted. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my mushroom caps in. We'll add that in on top of the butter. Now that we've got those added in, I'm just going to kind of give that a little bit of a toss around and get that butter on those mushroom caps. And then we'll add in our salt and our lemon juice. All right, now that we've got our mushrooms and our other ingredients now, there's not a lot of liquid in here. The butter that was in there is now all over the mushroom caps. So if you've ever cooked mushrooms before, they will release a lot of water. Moisture will come out of those. So we're going to cover this now and let this slowly cook for 5 minutes. I'm going to periodically come in here and just kind of give it a little bit of a stir around. All right, my timer just went off for my mushrooms. I wanted to show you what that looked like. So we've got quite a bit of liquid in that, as you can see. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to leave the lid on it, and we'll check our recipe and see what our next step is. Pour the mushrooms and the cooking juices into the strained soup base. Simmer for 10 minutes. All right, so I've got my soup base back over here. And while it's been sitting, I do see a little bit of skim on the top of it. As you can see that right there, I'm going to go ahead and move that to the side and take that off. And I guess that's what they were talking about earlier in the recipe, so we're going to take that off of that. So definitely if you see that come up on yours, you can remove that little bit of skim that come up on the top of that. Look like I got all of that off. And we'll add back our soup base to our mushrooms. All right, now that we've got that combined back together again, it said simmer for 10 minutes. I'm going to put the lid back on it and set a timer for 10 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll move to the next step. We're almost done. We're about ready to have some cream of mushroom soup. I am back, and my timer just went off. Let's check on our mushrooms now and our stock. So this looks absolutely incredible, and I'm going to keep this down on low, and we're going to go back and check our recipe and see what we're going to do next. All right, so just kind of recap, it says pour the mushrooms and the cooking juices into the strained soup base, simmer for 10 minutes. We just did that. It says if you're not going to serve it immediately, set it aside with the lid off, and then when you get ready to serve it, then heat it up for a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and then continue with the next step. So the next step is we're going to take 2 egg yolks and a 1/2 to 3/4 cup of whipping cream. We're going to put that into a quart mixing bowl, a 3-quart mixing bowl, and we're going to whisk that together. So that's what we're going to do now. So I've got 2 eggs here, and I'm going to separate these now. So if you've never separated egg whites and egg yolks before, this is how I do it with the shells. So you crack the shell itself, and then you want to kind of pull it apart, and you want to hold the egg yolk in one of the hemispheres of the eggshell, and then you'll toss it over into the other one. When you do, more of the egg yolk and the egg white will separate, and you just keep doing that until you get them separated. So now that we've got our egg yolk separated, I'm going to put that into that bowl, and we'll discard this, and we'll do the other one. All right, now that we've got that egg yolk separated, we'll put that in there, and I see just a little bit of that shell in there, so I'm going to grab me a fork. I'm going to pull that out. You don't want to leave that in there. All right, now we're going to take our egg yolks and we're going to add in our 3/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. Now you can put a 1/2 to 3/4. I'm going to go ahead and make this really creamy. So let's add 3/4 of that in there. And we're just going to give this a mix through with this whisk. Now that we've got our egg yolks and our whipping cream mixed together, I wanted to show you what that looks like. And I did get a bigger whisk because now we're going to continue with our recipe and see what the book says. All right, now it says beat the egg yolks and the cream in a mixing bowl, then beat in hot soup by spoonfuls until a cup has been added. Gradually stir in the rest, correct the seasoning, and return the soup to the pan and stir over moderate heat for 1 to 2 minutes to poach the egg yolks, but do not let the soup come near simmer. So what we're going to do now is what they call tempering eggs. And so I'm going to give that one last little stir through. I've got a measuring cup here. I'm going to take my lid off of my soup stock. And it's going to get some of that out of there. And I'm going to start stirring, and I'm going to add just a little bit. That looks like that's about a 1/4 cup. So she said about a cup. So I'm going to put just a little bit in there. You don't want to put too much in there, because if you put too much in there at one time, you will scramble these eggs, and we do not want that. So this is just going to raise that temperature of that cream and those eggs to the same temperature so that we can go ahead and incorporate that into our soup, and we won't have scrambled eggs that we'll be putting into our mixture. So add this in slowly and keep stirring. All right, we've got that in. I'm going to go grab some more of my broth. We got another 1/4 cup, and I'm going to continue that, doing the same process until we get a cup of my broth incorporated into my eggs and my whipping cream. All right, I've got the last of my broth here into my egg and whipped cream mixture. Let's just get that incorporated into that. And as you can see, you might be able to see some of the steam coming off this. We have raised the temperature of this up now, and this looks nicely. We do not have scrambled eggs in this bowl. And now we're going to put this back into here. All right, I did give that a whisk through just a few more times there before I get ready to mix that back in. So we'll take our bowl, and we're going to go ahead and put the eggs and the whipped cream in now. And I've got this turned down to about a 3 on my little electric eye here. And we're going to stir this in. And it said to heat this for about a minute or 2, and that will finish cooking the eggs. All right, now that we've got that cooked together, I'm going to grab me a little spoon here, and I'm going to check for seasoning to see if I need to add any more salt and pepper to it. Oh, wow. That already is absolutely delicious. I'm going to put just a little bit more salt and pepper in it, and I'll test it and see where we're at with it, and we'll do the last step and get ready to serve it. Stick with me. All right, I did add a little bit more salt and pepper to that. You definitely want to taste it at this point to see where you're at. Your chicken stock itself, if you buy the commercial ones, could have a lot of salt in it, so always check your mixture before you add anything to it, because you could find out that there's already a lot of salt in it. And I didn't have to add much to this. I just put just a little bit more in there. So get that mixed together. And the last thing it says to do is turn off the heat, and we're going to add in 1 to 3 tablespoons of softened butter. So this is going to be really decadent, I can tell. I'm going to go air on the middle and put 2 in. Give that a stir around and melt that in there. with that heavy whipping cream and that butter going in there, this is going to add a lot of flavor and richness to this soup. All right, I've got the butter incorporated into my soup now, and I wanted to show you what this looks like. The aroma that this is putting off is really nice. I already know this is going to taste fantastic, as I did taste a little bit of the broth a few minutes ago when I was putting in my salt and pepper to it. So I've got a little bowl here and a spoon, and let's dip up some of this and get a taste of that. Look how that looks. That is so nice and decadent. All those mushrooms in there. And then she said recommended maybe putting in some decorations on the top. So I've got some cut up parsley that I've got here, and you can cut up some of the mushroom caps if you wanted to do that also and put that on the top. Just going to put a little green on there to give it a little bit of color. Let's grab me a spoon and give this a taste. Wow. That is absolutely incredible. That tastes nothing like what the canned cream of mushroom soup tastes like. This is absolutely rich, decadent. Those mushrooms in there, that cream, those subtle little flavors of that thyme. It's just absolutely delicious. I can't really describe. That is really delicious. I know you're going to want to try this recipe. I'm glad I was able to bring this to you today. I taught myself a new recipe today, and I'll put the recipe in the description box. That way you'll have the ingredient list in there so that you can make some cream of mushroom soup for yourself. And if you've ever made cream of mushroom soup, I'd love to hear from you how yours has turned out, and if you did anything any different from this one. And if you try this recipe the way that I fixed it today, I definitely want to hear from you. If you like this content, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And check out one of these other two videos over here on the side. You might find something else you like. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye now. I'm going to get me another spoonful. This is a winner.